Thank you all for joining us. Thank you tonight. We're continuing our conversation and recitation of the Samadhirajasutra. And I believe we're on chapter 9. We just finished chapter 8. So we'll do our opening prayers and then we'll have a short discussion and then begin the recitation on chapter 9. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam la Zhangzhu Badu Dagni Kapsu Dagi Jinso Ki Pe Sonam Yi Drola Penshir Sangye Jupa Shog. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempar jorchi. Dug now dang do now gi gu dang drawar jorchi. Dog now may pay de wa dang mi dra wa jorchi. May ring chak dang ni dang dra wei dang namla ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you. So does anybody have any comments about anything that we've talked about thus far? In particular, maybe chapter 7 or chapter 8. Does anybody have any comments? Okay, well then I'd just like to point out that, the reason why we started this was because we were down at Dharma Surya Center, years ago, and once a year, the Tibetan people would come in, and they would be reading the sutras in the Tibetan language. They'd be taken down. This is called the Kangyur, the Tibetan translation of the sutras, and they would read them very, very quickly. They would divide them up. People would read and so on like that. And then I was there with a few other Western people, and we had some English translations. And while they were reading the Tibetan, we were reading the English, and it got me, thinking about how important this is, and the reason why they're doing it is to keep, the memory of the sutras fresh in their minds. And so that's why we started having these kind of talks and going through the sutras ourselves and going through and examining them and talking about them. So the Tibetans might not necessarily be doing that. Maybe the monastics did when they were younger in school and so on. But as it is now, if there's interest, then they would pull down the sutras and they would begin to talk about it. They would study them and so on like that. And that's what I think, what we're doing here is to inspire ourselves to do that, to look at these and periodically come back to some of the most important sutras. And this, among all the sutras, this Samadhirajasutra is considered to be one of the most important. So I think it'd be very difficult for any of us, for myself anyway, to be able to read this one time and capture all the meaning of it. It's something that I've had to read over and over again, and still I feel, that I need to spend more time studying, reading, and contemplating, and so on like that. So I hope that this process of going through this together inspires you all to do that, because the benefits are great. Um, it just says, for the Bodhisattva in chapter 8, talking about the Buddha Avatam Sugata, it talks about, well, how does the Bodhisattva develop no desire? And then it says in the introduction, it says, to attain the wisdom of non-existence of phenomena so that it will have no desire. So in other words, we need to understand non-existence of phenomena. We need to understand emptiness. So these things are all linked together. They're very subtle in many cases and so on. So if we're looking to keep ourselves on the path, understanding many of these things is quite important. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about chapter 9. Does anybody have any comments? Does anybody... So we go to chapter 9 in our book, The Patience of the Profound Dharma. The Patience of the Profound Dharma. So we've been talking about developing our patience. Now we're aiming at the patience of the Dharma itself, the teachings of the Buddha, and how to incorporate that into our lives. So the acceptance of the profound Dharma. So in the index, or written, in the introduction, introduction I-44, in the front of the book that you have, chapter 9 is the patience of the profound Dharma. So it's just one paragraph. I'm going to read that because it gives us an introduction as to what this chapter is going to be about. So it says, the Buddha tells Chandraprabha that all the Buddhas have attained Buddhahood as a result of practicing the teaching of this sutra, have been practicing the teaching of this sutra. And that was one of the things that we kind of uncovered in the weeks before, that being a bodhisattva includes being a teacher. It's the process, it's part of the process in refining our understanding, refining our wisdom by being a teacher. So it's an important thing. So whether you're teaching yourself or you have some people that you're teaching, maybe you're writing a synopsis or something like that, it reinforces what it is that you're learning and experiencing. So it says, the result of practicing the teaching of the sutra. He says that the patience of the Dharma is attained through realizing that everything is like a dream or an illusion, so that there is no desire, anger, or ignorance. So how could we get angry? How could we be deluded? How could we be attached to something that doesn't exist? So this is the realization that we have, that we see that everything, that our life and so on like that this phenomenal existence is illusory, is like a dream. So we should drop our attachments. We should drop our anger. We should drop our delusions, realizing that it's just illusory. So he teaches that one should avoid association with fools and with those who have become bhikshus as a source of livelihood. So I guess the fools are those who don't take the Dharma seriously, don't take the sutras seriously. They have a comedic way of approaching life and so on, not a serious way of approaching life, and they act like fools and so on. And we shouldn't waste our time with folks like that. We should be serious and involve ourselves with learning and with study, with practicing, with contemplation, and with meditation. It says, and we shouldn't involve ourselves with those who have become bhikshus as a source of livelihood. So the bhikshus may be mendicant monks, but it's not as a source of livelihood for them that they're doing this. It becomes part of what their work is. It becomes that they are studying and so on. They are working, they are on the path, and they're sharing that with other beings. They're not doing it as a money making proposition in their lives. So we should avoid folks like that because it becomes very egocentric, I believe. And then he teaches that one should not only give the teachings, but also practice and realizing them. So this last line is an underscore of what I've been saying, that we should give the teachings and practice them in order that we can realize them. It's a process, and it's something that we're kind of moving around in this circle doing. We get a little bit of understanding, we begin to study it, we begin to practice it, and so on. And then by teaching it, sometimes that becomes the grist of the mill that allows us to understand it better, to be able to communicate it to other people. And the questions that they raise brings doubts out in ourselves, misunderstandings and so on, and we're able to refine our understandings. So it's a process of learning, of practicing, of teaching, of contemplation that leads to the meditation and the realization. So this chapter, chapter 9, the patience of the profound Dharma, is going to give an exposition of what this means, of what this is, more detail as to what we can expect to find, and maybe we've already found in our own lives and so on. So we start on chapter 9. So if we can, the first two pages and a little bit of the third page here in our book is like one part of the conversation. So I'm going to ask somebody to read. So Brendan, would you mind? Would you like to do that? Read this part? Yes.
Now I'm unmuted. I want to make sure I'm on the right. It says chapters 1 through 10.
Yeah, you want to go to chapter 9.
Okay, it says the ornaments. Perfect.
The ornaments? No, no, no.
Chapter 9, the ornaments is what mine says.
What book do you have there? I didn't see what that is.
The play in full,
No, no, no,
TOA.
sir. No, sir. We're on the Samadhirajasutra.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you feel like, you're up for
Uh,
this recitation?
I'm up for it if somebody else can go first so I can make sure I've got the right book in the right place.
Okay, all right. Well, then, how about Kunga? Kunga, would you read the first two pages and as it carries over to the end of 9.7? And then
Yep,
we'll have a conversation after that.
sure.
Perfect.
Chapter 9, The Patience of the Profound Dharma. Then the Bhagavan said to the youth Kantabhabra, Young man, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, who wish to attain quickly the highest complete enlightenment of perfect Buddhahood and liberate all beings from the ocean of existence, should hear this king of samadhis, in which the equality of the nature of all phenomenon is revealed, which is praised by all the Buddhas and is the mother of the Tathagatas. They should obtain it, preserve it, understand it, recite it to others, promote it, proclaim it, chant it, meditate on it with unadulterated meditation, promulgate it, and make it widely known to others. Why is that, young man? This king of samadhis the revealed equality of nature of all phenomena, has given birth to all the Tathagatas, the Arhats, the perfectly enlightened Buddhas. All Tathagatas, Sravakas, and Pradika Buddhas have come from it. Therefore, young man, you also should obtain this king of samadhis, the revealed equality of the nature of all phenomena, which is praised by all the Buddhas, and is mother of the Tathagatas. It has been said, therefore, those who wish for enlightenment and Buddhahood, and to liberate beings from the ocean of existence, should obtain this sutra praised by the Buddhas, and then sublime enlightenment would not be difficult to attain. Then the Bhagavan said to the youth Kantaprabha, young man, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, who wish to attain quickly the highest complete enlightenment of perfect Buddhahood, should become skilled in the patience of profound Dharma. Young man, how do Bodhisattva Mahasattvas become skilled in the patience of profound Dharma? Young man, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas should know that all phenomena are like illusions. They should know that all phenomena are like dreams, like mirages, like echoes, like optical illusions, like the moon on water, like hallucinations, like reflections, and like space. Young man, when Bodhisattva Mahasattvas know that all phenomena are like illusions, they are skilled in the patience of profound Dharma. Those who have the patience of profound Dharma have no desire for any phenomena that causes desire, have no anger towards any phenomena that causes anger, have no ignorance regarding any phenomena that causes ignorance. Why is that? It is because they do not see that phenomena. They do not perceive that phenomena. They do not see the phenomena and they do not perceive the phenomena of that which is desired, the desire, or the desirer, that which angers, the anger, or one who is angry, nor that of which one is ignorant, the ignorance, or the one who is ignorant. Because they do not see and do not perceive those phenomena, they have no desire, have no anger, they have no ignorance. Their minds do not regress, and they rest in meditation. They are without conceptual elaboration. They have crossed over to the other side. They have reached dry land. They have reached safety. They have attained freedom from fear. They have correct conduct. They have knowledge. They have wisdom. They have merit. They have miraculous powers. They have memory. They have intelligence. They have realization. They have a sense of modesty. They have stability. They have bodhisattva conduct. They have the austerity of the disciplines of mendicancy. They are unblemished. They have nothing. They are arhats. Their defilements have ceased. They have no kleshas. They have power. Their minds are liberated. Their wisdom is liberated. They are thoroughbred stallions. They are great elephants. They have done what has to be done. They have accomplished what had to be accomplished. They have put down their burden. They have reached their goals. They have ended engagement with existence. They have liberated their mind through true knowledge. There are mendicants who have attained all the perfect, highest, complete powers of the mind. They are Brahmins. They are Sanatakas. They are masters of the Vedas. They know the Vedas. They are Shrotriyas. They are children of the Buddhas. They are the children of Sakya. They have crushed the thorns. They have not left the law behind. They have left the trench barrier behind. They have crossed over the trench barrier. They have extracted the splinters. They have no illness. They are bhikkhus. They are free from all bondage. They have been born as humans. They are good humans. They are supreme humans. They are great humans. They are human lions. They are human elephants. They are human stallions. They are human cart horses. They are human heroes. They are human strongmen. They are human flowers. They are human lotuses. They are human white lotuses. They are human tamers. They are human moons. They are extraordinary humans. They are stainless humans.
Very good. Thank you. So, who would like to give an explanation of what we just heard?
May I go first, Lance, since I punted on reading and I found my place, by the way. So
Oh,
I mean,
good. Yes,
yeah.
certainly. Yeah, go.
Well, first of all, I think we all benefited by having Congo read that. That was very, very well read. But I'm reading. This is really about spiritual power, is what this seems like to me. all of these examples of stability, modesty, bodhisattva conduct. Just there's so many temptations in the world right now. I'm not here to get political. I think we probably all share a lot of the same views, but there's just so much outrage right now on both sides. And it's just, sometimes you have to take a step back and just say, I'm going to emulate what we just read in this sutra for my own peace, for my own karma, uh, for my own strength. And so that's something I've been thinking about recently. And just what did the Buddha once say? Getting angry is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to get hurt. So I think he may have said that. So that's where my mind was going reading this, just all about the spiritual power that comes with the Dharma. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernie, what's your comment on this?
Well, it really placing what it calls here the king of samadhis, which is the what's the phrase? The real equality of the nature of all phenomena.
The revealed equality.
In the top position, it's saying you have this one quality, all the other qualities of enlightenment flow from it. And really, it really, to me, just seems to be another name for the direct understanding of emptiness. If it's more than that, it's not clear to me. But so the direct perception of emptiness, out of that flows all the good qualities of the enlightened mind, all the good qualities of conduct that is mentioned in this very long list. That's how I would summarize it.
So your point about saying the direct, so this is not something that is intellectualized.
Oh no.
This is something that is experienced and something that is a result of attainment of realization. Is that correct?
Directly seen through typically through the practice of meditation. Directly seen. You have to see it directly. It has to be like seeing that the sky is blue. You don't just think about it and understand it intellectually. You actually have to see it.
So how do you relate to that in this life? What do you think about it? Is that possible?
Oh, it's absolutely possible. If it wasn't possible, we wouldn't have any enlightened teachers, obviously. So yeah, it's possible for anybody who is willing to devote the time and effort to practice. Well, I can't say it's available to everybody. I really don't know. But I think the biggest problem is not that people aren't capable of doing it. I think the biggest problem is people just don't put in the work. And when they put in the work, you get the result out of the practice, depending on the work that you put into it. Maybe that's a little too harsh, but yeah, it's not a question of lack of capacity. I think it's really more a question of lack of. I mean, obviously, it takes a long time. You can't sit down and expect to be enlightened in, like, say, 6 months. But with time and with effort, these understandings come. That's my belief. Yeah.
Do you think that that experiencing there's several different aspects to this. It's like a diamond. There's many different facets to it and so on. Is it necessary to understand or to be able to articulate all this detail, or is it is it most important to understand the essence of it?
Well,
and that we have these kind of scriptures to help us to develop an intellectualization of it, but the real attainment is in the heart center.
Well, I would say, yeah, it's not necessary to understand it intellectually to have the experience. And I would say that some of the people Westerners who I think have really gone furthest haven't been the persons who've been the smartest or the best educated. I think the people who've really devoted themselves to their teacher and really devoted themselves to the practice. And I think that's the key. I mean, I'm not going to put down learning. Obviously, to me, learning is very important. It's my style of life. I'm a person who went to the university. I'm a person who's read hundreds of books on, well, maybe not hundreds, but many books on Buddhism and tried to understand all the philosophy. And I think that's definitely secondary. That's important to teach, but it's not important to for personal realization, I don't think.
Okay. Thank you.
My
Aileen?
opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Aileen, how would you explain this? How does this relate to you and your life? And you've been a practitioner for many years. You've been studying many years. I know that, and attended many teachings and sessions and so on. But I kind of think that maybe one of the things that you're looking for is more practice. What does this mean to you?
Well, it means probably less associate with the people who create conflict to us, so we can have peace of mind. And because if we interact with the people who doesn't have the wisdom of Dharma practice, it's not easy to overcome, to associate with them. So the best way, sometimes I feel like maybe we should avoid the people, the people who doesn't have any concept about Dharma, practicing patience or whatsoever, see everything as an illusion. We should avoid associate with them, so we can have peace to continue our practice. But sometimes it's very hard. Like it say here, we have to practice and teach, and keep teaching. I feel like sometimes I want to reach out to the people surrounding, associate with me, give them some sort of Dharma teaching, but it seems like they cannot comprehend. I feel like they cannot hear. So I wonder, how do I approach them? How do I teach them? I don't know, because I feel like maybe they have heavy karma, afflicted emotions, that they not purifying it, so they cannot hear what I try to teach them. So that's my struggle. Sometimes I feel, I don't know what the solution, how to convince them, to teach them.
Well, that's very good.
Do you have some kind of advice maybe can give me? Because I try my best to spread the Dharma to them, say the good things, but they cannot hear.
Are you talking about people that are in your family, friends?
Yeah, family members.
People that live in your neighborhood?
No, family members.
Family and friends. So
Friends.
are they people that have a Buddhist background?
We consider ourselves a Buddhist, but we don't. They don't practice.
So these might be fellow countrymen that they came from Vietnam or Asia, something like that.
Mm-hmm. My family members, especially my brothers.
Oh, yeah.
My brothers, and I feel like I don't want to associate with them because they cannot hear anything what I try to tell them. So that's my obstacle sometimes. I really want everybody, to learn the Dharma, because I know ultimate goal, we don't want to reborn again, in the six realms. So I try very hard, but they cannot hear. So I don't know how I'm going to spread the teaching to them.
Well, maybe you can't. Maybe that, as you say, there are people who, aren't interested in learning, and you're not going to be able to change that. But maybe there's some
Mhm.
other people in your neighborhood and your community who might be open to that.
Mhm.
So going to a senior center may be an idea. Maybe finding out what other programs are going on in your nearby community, in the library or something like that. And offering to give fundamental teachings on Dharma, on Buddha Dharma, and making it very simple using the Jewel Ornamental Liberation as a guidebook, or one of Khenpo Samdup's books, his book of the Liberation book. I can't remember the title of it right now on the top of my head, but he's got a very good book for that as well. And
Mhm.
keeping it simple, maybe making it 6 classes, maybe 6 45-minute classes or 1 hour classes or something like that, and
Mhm.
writing a script for it, organizing your thoughts about it so that you can talk about it and be conversational about it. I think
Mhm.
that's one way of doing it. You want to find people who are willing to hear it. You're not going to be able to go to people that have no intention to want to learn it and change their minds, but find people that have an interest.
But but the thing is, like, my brother is immediate family.
Yeah.
So I should avoid them then
No,
because
you
it's
don't have to
great.
avoid them, but maybe if it's not going to produce good feelings, if it's not going to if you're going to offer them a teaching and they're not interested, then you just don't go there. Maybe you have a family meeting and you just say, why don't you want to do this? Put them a little bit on the spot and say, why don't you want to do this? We come from a land that this was our native way of living. This was our religion. This was our practice. Why aren't you interested? And call them out. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things I always try and do is get people to speak. I
Okay.
speak as I speak as little as I can. Sometimes I speak too much, but I try and speak as little as I can because I'm trying to get other people to speak so that they can hear themselves and get themselves thinking about things. So maybe putting them on the spot, maybe doing one at a time. If you've got several
I
brothers,
think they put them on the spot.
huh?
You want to go to hell when you die.
Yeah. Well, don't be
Say,
too crazy about it.
Can I say something about this?
Sure.
Because not something, okay. Uh, I was always frustrated that, back when we had the Sunday session going at Susquehanna Yoga, that so few people came back. I would tell them, you learn the meditation and do it 10 to 15 minutes every day and gradually increase the amount of time. And that's how you need to do it. I don't think very many people did that. So I was kind of frustrated with that. And I saw a person who online who was a fitness coach. And I said, well, do you have problems with your students and getting them to follow what you tell them to do as a coach? And he said something I thought was very intelligent. He said, the way to get people to do what you want to do is you have to inspire them. Inspire them with your own example. And once they see that you are the kind of person that they want to be and what you are doing, they'll naturally want to do the things that you are doing. And I thought that was the right answer. It's hard to tell people what to do. You have to inspire them to do better than they're doing now. And that's the hard part. You have to be the kind of person who inspires other people. And unfortunately, I was not it. But that's really what's required in order to change people. And when I think about all the teachers and the teachers who really made a big splash in the West, that's the reason, because they're inspiring people. You see them and you think, I want to be like this person, and so I will follow and listen to what he says. And I think without that inspirational quality, it's really hard to tell people what to do.
Thank you very much. That's inspiring. Thank you. I'd like to ask Kunga, because I know Kunga is part of a group, and it's very interesting because where he is, they seem to have quite a number of people who continue to come and so on, and here, in the Middle Atlantic and so on, and we don't see that kind of interest as much as what you seem to be experiencing up in Michigan. So, can you speak to that, Kunga?
Yeah. So it's interesting that Eileen brought this up because I'm working with a student and he's reading the Diamond Sutra. And the Diamond Sutra, Thich Nhat Hanh provides a commentary on Diamond Sutra, and one of the commentaries that he shared recently was that Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about how he spread his teaching. He's Thich Nhat Hanh's from Vietnam. How he spreads the teachings, and he says, well, he doesn't spend as much time with the older people who are set in their ways. He spends more time with the younger people because he feels like they have more energy and they're more flexible. And it's just this idea, which is also reminding me of teaching of Jesus. When you're planting the seed, you try and find the most fertile soil to place the seed in. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of conditions for a seed to sprout. And then really the only one you have control over is like the quality of the seed and the ground you plant it in. So if you're thinking of people, if someone's not interested or they're not right now, then they're not a very good ground to plant that seed, and they're kind of like trying to plant it in a desert. They're not going to nurture it. You can put the seed there, but they're not doing anything to nurture it, so it's just not going to sprout. Much better to find someone who's already, excited about the Dharma, engaged in the Dharma, someone who's going to water that seed so it's really going to grow. Um, so that was one thing. That was what I thought about related to your question. But going back to the sutra, I know I read we read the beginning, which talks about, don't waste your time with fools, right? And I thought that was interesting in comparison to right here at the beginning of the sutra. It starts to talk about this idea that really there are no fools. So I'll just read this section here. It's from starting at 9.7. Young man, when bodhisattva mahasattvas know that all phenomena are like illusions, they are skilled in the patience of profound Dharma. Those who have the patience of profound Dharma have no desire for any phenomenon that causes desire, have no anger towards any phenomenon that causes anger, and have no ignorance regarding any phenomenon that causes ignorance. Why is that? It is because they did not see the phenomenon, they did not perceive that phenomenon. They did not see that which is desired, the desire or the desirer, that which angers, the anger or the one who is not, who is angry, nor that of which one is ignorant, the ignorance or the one who is ignorant. Because they do not see and do not perceive those phenomena, they have no desire, they have no anger, they have no ignorance, and their minds do not regress. So I thought that was interesting because, even though I think like later on you can talk about this idea and fools and how we shouldn't associate with, you know, in the beginning it says just remember these things are all empty. You know, we're perceiving someone as a fool or ignorant or angry, but that's just our perception. They have another perception. Someone else might not think they're ignorant or angry or a fool. You know, all these things are empty, and I think it's just maybe holding loosely to these ideas, not attaching them too strongly as we read this. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think a couple things what Kunka just said, and the last phrase in that section that he just read, it says, and they rest in meditation. The goal is to maintain your meditation. And then out of the meditation, we kind of, find a way to be able to teach people and so on, to find a language, to find a commonality that we can reach them, that they want to hear what we have to say. So one thing I've learned is you have to meet people where they are. So right now, with young people, talking about teenagers or whatever, to meet them where they are, you got to find a way to be able to get to them on their phones, on their iPhones, because that's where they are. And so, I've talked with a number of people who have the technical skill to put something together for Instagram or any of those kind of apps that kids use that would be a learning tool for the Dharma to, reach them where they are. Okay, if that's the means, we find a way to meet them there. So that's one thing, for family members, who are middle-aged or something like that, it's a difficult problem, and we love our family. The first people that we want to help is our family. That's a very natural reaction to do that, and so trying to reach your brothers or whomever in your family like that, to reach them where they are. So one question I have is, do they have an aversion to Buddhism? Was there Buddhism that they grew up in or that they were exposed to in their families? Was it Pure Land or was it Vajrayana? Was it Tibetan style Buddhism? And maybe we need to concentrate a little bit more on the Pure Land style rather than the Vajrayana style. Maybe the style in which you're presenting it has to change. Another thing that I've learned over the years is by telling a story, a compelling story. And for me, it was telling the life story of the Buddha. To have a way to, in an hour and a half's time, but very animated, very, illustrative, but a stream of consciousness, to be able to tell the story of the Buddha in a way that people were very interested in hearing it. Maybe your family's heard the story, but maybe they don't know some of the details. But that might be some idea, some way to approach to reach people by telling some kind of a story. So maybe it's his life story, maybe it's the Dhammapada stories, the Jataka stories. There are these storybooks and saying, I love you, I want to help you, I want to tell you some things that may, has helped me, change my life, and I want to share it with you. We don't have much time together, but let's make some time to be able to do this and appeal to them at that family kind of a level with a good story to tell them, and you practice the story. So I said a couple of weeks ago that when we started the group that Bernie was just starting, I was just talking about, it was 5 guys who were all practitioners at different levels, and when we first began, we began to teach each other the very same topics. And we went through the first year just teaching each other because we were learning style, we were learning words, vocabulary, a way to be able to reach each other and to have a consistency in our group. So I thought it was very effective. And so maybe, being part of that, being part of some other groups, maybe you can use Zoom as a format to be able to do that. So
Yes.
yes.
I have a question. Like sometimes I feel like to talk about Dharma and have them engage, in Buddhist practice. And I know meditation is the basic step, to calm the mind. And I always wonder, is there a short booklet like instruction how to meditate? Because I know when I first started, most of the lamas say, "Oh, meditate, breathe in and out, in and out." It seems like it's very hard focus, and they, for the beginner, they might not understand what is meditation? What is that? Because for a beginner who doesn't have any experience at all, when they practice, they might fall asleep, So that might discourage them. So I want to know if you have some kind of instruction on meditation, like a very short instruction, but very direct, you know.
Yeah, I do. I got this book here. This is what we put together for the Buddha practice study, So, and in this, it's got prayers, that we use. So maybe it's too much for what you're thinking about. But then we go to, it talks about the four thoughts that turn the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma are in this book. And then it comes to the next part where it says the method, the stages of meditation. And then it's teaching how to meditate. Of course, you're going to introduce it to them. And then this is their book that they use to practice at home on their own. But you're teaching from this kind of a book, which is very, very helpful. And everything that's in here is in other books that we've learned from Tibetan Meditation Center or from Drikung Dharma Surya Center or from Garchin Center. It's nothing that's new or revolutionary. It's just stuff it's all together in this one book. So it's a process that over the course of, say, 6 or 8 weeks, you can expose people to this process and so on. So if you're interested in that's what I've got, and I'd be more than happy to share it with you and help explain it with you.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, good. So so let's work on that, and I think that's a great step. I think you're bringing that up and being willing to engage in that. That's a step in the right direction of becoming a bodhisattva, on the path to become a bodhisattva.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we can talk about that whenever you like.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Brendan, after hearing what people were saying, what do you think about this?
Well, it was a fascinating conversation, and I like what Kunga said about the fertile ground and making sure that you're reaching people, and what you said, Lance, reaching people where they are. And I thought about what on earth got myself involved in the Dharma, and I realized that my fertile ground was not getting what I wanted, was experiencing disappointment and sadness, and that if I had gotten everything I wanted in my 20s, I probably never would have gotten involved in the Dharma in the first place. So I think adversity is something that creates fertile ground. This understanding of samsara, that there are times you just can't win, or at least you can't win if what you want to win is money and power and girlfriends and excitement and all those things I wanted in my 20s. That, when you don't get that, you start to realize, well, wait a minute, maybe this isn't what I'm expected to get from this life. Maybe because of samsara, I'm not expected to get everything or a lot of what I want. So, for what it's worth, I think that a healthy understanding of experience of adversity can help move the mind towards the Dharma. And sometimes real hard-headed people like myself need that. So,
do you think that I've heard many people say, and I've read it in books and commentaries and so on, that a lot of people, Western people, think that Buddhism spends way too much time talking about suffering and death and confusion and stuff like that, and that there's no happiness in it. But so I think that's one of the things that we can bring to talking to people is show them the joy that we are in having, because of the Dharma, and through that joy we're overcoming the things, and the joy just becomes bigger and bigger, more expansive, more vast, and so on like that.
oh yes, the rough edges of samsara is just the beginning. I mean, that's just the entry point. You're right, Lance. It gets better after that once you once you understand. I'll add something Aileen said. I have a fascination with Cambodian and Laotian Buddhism. I don't exactly know why, but it's just the temples and the architecture and the art. So um, sometimes it's the grass is always greener on the other side. Like I've been very dismissive of my own tradition, which is Christianity. And, I'm starting to see that that's kind of a flaw in myself, that my dismissiveness of it is something that is a lack of enlightenment on my part. And um, I envy that background, Aileen, from Southeast Asia. I think that's a really cool part of the world and um, a beautiful tradition over there.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially Thailand has a lot of temples.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, you just made a good point, Brendan, and that is my experience was I got relatives down in North Carolina who left Baltimore, went down to North Carolina, and became Christians.
Mhm.
And going to the Christian church, I would go when I would visit there for one reason or another, the family thing or something like that. And I was amazed during a sermon or something like that that the pastor was talking about bodhicitta. It didn't call it bodhicitta, but called it loving kindness, called it compassion, called it joy, and called it equanimity. So, and I've talked several different times at funerals where down south there, and where I used bodhicitta as a way to be able to talk about the person who passed away and how they practice, how they live bodhicitta in themselves, and everybody really responded to that. So my point is that there is an essence of the Buddhism that is shared in the Christianity, and that one does not exclude the other, I don't think. And finding the language to be able to pull that together is the key. How to reach those people at in their terms, meet people where they are.
Look, Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? It sounds a lot like the recent Buddhist monks marching for peace. They didn't know where they were going to eat or where they were going to sleep, but they didn't worry about it because they had that tremendous power that we read about in the Sutra at the beginning of the evening. So,
Well, I feel like I could be a very strong Christian pastor or something like that. There's nothing that would stop me from doing it except that I found, the Dharma that satisfied a deeper curiosity, a different system. Let's call it that, a different structure that I really enjoy and so on. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't take that and use that structure in Christianity, expand the Christian conversation, the sermons and so on, to make it as a Christian and a Christian church or something like that. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. I've heard rumors that Jesus may have been exposed to Buddhism or might have been, I mean, I can't prove that, so I don't like to make claims I can't prove, but it's an interesting possibility that, like, the Sermon on the Mount seems to have elements of Buddhism to it.
See, I often think, if you can come back in 300 or 400 years from now, we're going to see that the Buddhism and Christianity are going to morph together. And it's the seeds of that are here right now, and what we do with that. I don't think that Christianity excludes the principles of Dharma. I think it invites the reasons behind it, the what, the why, and the how. And I think what is the kingdom of God, and can we explain that in Dharma terms that Christians would enjoy?
When did you say, Lance? How many thousands of years or hundreds of years?
What? What? Did the two would come together?
Yeah.
I think in a few generations. I think in 200 or 300 years. I think if 100 years might be 4 generations, so maybe 8, 9, 10 generations or something like that.
All right. I was going to make a very snarky joke and say, well, we'll still be waiting for the second coming then, but that's not a very charitable thing to say, so I won't joke about that.
Well, what is that? What is the second? How do you define the second coming?
Well, in the Bible, it's Jesus coming down on a cloud.
Well, I
And,
know. How would we define it?
that's a good question. Yeah.
How do you redefine it for a new atmosphere of education and enlightenment or something like that?
Yeah, perhaps I'm being too literal. Now you've got me
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. You're being too low. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I just want to say that we've already had an attempt to combine the world religions, and that was the Theosophical Society. And that had its ups and its downs, its pluses and its minuses.
But
But I
that
think
doesn't
it's
mean it didn't have some good ideas.
oh, they did. I think there's a lot that was impressive about the Theosophical Society. Tried to bring together science, Western religion, and Eastern religion. I don't think the final result was that profound, but I think they had a lot of good ideas.
That was Madame Blavatsky
Madame Blavatsky and others,
and the Colonel and so on like
Colonel
that.
Colonel
Yeah,
Alcott,
and
and
Annie Besant.
Annie Besant, and of course Krishnamurti came out of that movement. He renounced it, but he started as a theosophist.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and Sri
it's really
Aurobindo, he's written a few books, and one
uh,
about, Christianity in Buddhist terms, in
yeah,
Hindu terms,
it's
rather.
fairly common for Hindu teachers to try to
Yeah.
uh, incorporate Christ as basically teaching the same thing. It's what they now call the perennial philosophy, the idea that all religions teach the same basic ideas, but all in their own way. And there are pluses and minuses with that point of view, but it's something that I basically agree with at a certain level.
So this very conversation is exactly what we're talking about, being on the path and learning how to teach, learning how to, be an example, learning how to work this out, and the Sangha working it out with each other. When we do the prayer, the food prayer, and it's in this book, the food prayer, I don't know if you
The meal
do it
prayer.
or if you've seen it, but I'm just going to turn to it. So we and the lamas, they go Tompa Lamed, Sengi Rinpoche, Kappa Lamed, Demsho Rinpoche, Demba Lama, Gedu Rinpoche, Kupne Kunchak Sumla Chapa Bul. That's the food blessing in Tibetan. What is it in English? The precious Buddha is the supreme teacher. The precious Dharma is the supreme protection. The precious Sangha is the supreme guide. To these three jewels, the objects of refuge, I make these offerings of food. The Sangha is the supreme guide. And this is what we are doing. This conversation is what we are doing to nurture our ability to be able to develop a guidance for other people, for ourselves, and to be able to help other people. And this is exactly what we're doing right now. Okay. So that's why I say, you got to read these things several times, this chapter and the chapter that came before, to really get, what's being said here and what am I doing to promulgate this, is the word they use, to promulgate. Promulgate is to teach, to carry it forward, to spread the word and so on like that. Okay. Anybody else have a comment? We'll move on.
Yeah, I do. I wanted to talk a little bit about the notes, what the notes have to say about the different similes or titles or descriptors of the people who have attained the meditative state. It starts on, so it's nine. I'm looking at 9.7, about halfway down. It's like some of them, are obvious, but some of them are. I thought the notes were really helpful. So like looking at the first one that caught my eye was it says they
What
have.
number? What number note is it?
Well, it's all part 9.7, but it's really long. So about halfway down, it's note number 333. So the
Okay.
little note, you can see the little note on the side there.
Yeah.
It says they have memory. So if you look in your book of notes, book 5 of 5, that's
Memory of previous lives.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that was interesting, a little bit more detail there that was memory of the previous lives. Um, Another one that I thought was interesting was 336, the where it says they're called where it says they're stallions, and it says that can be also meaning all knowing. Um, and it says applied to people in a laudatory sense, basically, but saying tamed and fearless. So give you a sense of what that had to do with. And then another one that I thought was really interesting. Number 339, the Sanatakas.
Hmm.
It says refers to bathing, but says those who have been washed clean of all the stains of the kleshas and remain in the water of patience. So not it's hard to get all that from that word Sanatakas. And then another one that I thought was interesting was 342, the Surotrayas. And it says here they have renounced everything. So I get the idea that maybe renounced all desires. If you go back up to the beginning, it would probably be renounced all ignorance and renounced all anger and renounced all desires, basically sort of in emptiness. Another one I thought was interesting when they talk about the trench. Oh, say here's 4344, the thorns. So the thorns are basically the kleshas. So the kleshas are like the negative emotions. And then they follow that up with the trench barrier, left the trench barrier behind, 346. And they have crossed over the trench barrier, 347. And they have extracted the splinters, 348. And so that's has to do with the kleshas, it says. Cross the boundary created by the kleshas or the obstructions created by negative emotions. The habitual tendencies for the kleshas, so just our habits to go into those negative emotions. The vicious disease of the kleshas, so like the kleshas, these negative emotions being like a disease. I thought those are all pretty interesting. And then the other ones I thought the ones with the animals were really kind of interesting too. So the human lions, and that one basically referring to that idea of the Buddha saying the lion's roar, spreading the Dharma is like spreading the lion's roar. And it says proclaim selflessness. And then for 351, they are human elephants, and that says there's a lot of commentary in the Way of the Bodhisattva about comparing the mind to an elephant and like tethering it. And here it says that where is that? 351. Their minds are at rest in meditation at all times. That's why they're like elephants, because their minds are at rest at all times. The few more here. Let's see. 352, again, was back to the negative emotions. It says they are human stallions because they are trained and fearless in the battle with the kleshas. So again, it's so much about like just dealing with the negative emotions.
Well, can I comment?
Sure.
So, what you're inviting here is a real study, a digging into this sutra, this particular part here, and looking at the notes and developing a critical thinking. What is actually being said here? This is part of the contemplation. We have the learning, we have the study, we have the practice, we have the contemplation. So what you're suggesting is, reading this, looking at the notes, and then I'm suggesting critical thinking. What does this mean? For myself, years and years ago, one of the things that I always had a problem with, the religions, whether it was Jewish religion or it was Christian religion or even the Hindu religion, was there was mysteries. And there was always these mysteries, and they'd fall back on when you try to dig in. Well, what's going on here? And they say, "Oh, well, that's a mystery. That's a mystery of God. That's a mystery of spirituality or something like that." And I was always looking for something that would reveal the mysteries. And for me, the Dharma does that. Now, a document like this, which is a literal translation of something that's 2,000 years old or so, there's some mystery mixed in here because it was part of the zeitgeist and so on. But we have critical thinking to be able to look at this and be able to look at the references and begin to understand the metaphors and so on and dig a little bit deeper and so on and reveal those mysteries to ourselves. And I think we do that through the study, the intellectual process, but I also think that we do it through the contemplation and the meditation that comes out of it. And we can't deny ourselves that experience. We shouldn't deny ourselves. We should allow ourselves to do that, to have the meditative experience. The point about the very first thing that you just mentioned was about prior lives. I don't have any experience with prior lives that I can say I was born, in 1942, or I was born in 1850, or I don't have any experience with that. But what I have learned is that I can understand the transpersonal through my meditation, that I can put myself in that kind of a situation and think about what life was like then. And so on, and use what I've already developed as being a human being here, because what I've developed, what I am as a human being now, was the same as what was then. And then I just be able to kind of transpose it and see it in that different light and so on. So in that way, I feel like I'm able to migrate to prior lives and so on. And I think that's valid. I think it's productive. I think to have the mystery, to allow ourselves to be in the mystery of prior lives, and only special people get that ability, I think is a prevarication of the truth. I think that's a technique when people get frustrated and not be able to explain. Well, then you have to look at the transpersonal experience of yourself being in some other situation and so on like that. So that's how I look at it. And I think that we need to be able to put ourselves in that kind of frame of mind. And then we start breaking through things that seem mysteries, and we start solving the mysteries through critical thinking. My point is through critical thinking. What do you think about that, Gunga?
I don't have any problem with mysteries. They can remain unsolved for me. I don't have to explain them. But I think the reason I pointed out these notes is because I think sometimes it's easy for us to say, oh, this is just a lot of devotional elaboration about they're just trying to say what it is to be a great Buddhist practitioner. But really, there's a lot of different nuances being expressed here in the details, and we shouldn't just lump all these things into ornamentation of the script. I think there's a lot of deep meaning there that we're not getting and we lose out on that if we don't pay attention to those things. And it's all right for things to be, well, for me, it's all right for things to be mysteries. I'm just a young practitioner. This material has been passed down for thousands of years by people who've practiced a lot more Buddhism than I have. So I accept a lot of faith in what's been passed down. And if I don't get it, I I just let that seed there sit in there until it gets nurtured, and then maybe it'll sprout and bloom later. I'm not worried about it. As far as your past lives, Lance, hell, yesterday was your past life. When you're 4 years
Absolutely.
old, that was a past life. You probably don't even remember it.
Well, that's absolutely right, and that's part of the critical thinking to
So
realize that.
I believe in that our consciousness is constantly living and dying, and I'm not surprised that I can't remember. Hell, I can't remember what I was doing last week at a particular time, let alone 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. So why should I be surprised that I can't remember a past life at this point? I'm not surprised. And I did, Bernie said something earlier that I just wanted to comment on. From the Zen perspective, Bernie talked about how putting in the hard work, to get the realization. The work is the realization. That's it. I mean, you're doing the work, that's the realization. The teaching is, from my perspective, that to think that there's something else to attain is the barrier. Thank you.
That's critical thinking, yes. Anybody else like to comment on any of this? Okay. The point of prior lives, you know, the memory of the intellect, that consciousness, dies with the body, but there is that transpersonal, that is that undying vibration that penetrates all beings. We talk about that, and that's what we're tuning into, and that's the transpersonal that allows us to be able to go back and understand, what it is to be a human being or any other being for that matter. Sometimes, I watch some of these nature shows and I'm watching and seeing these animals living out in the wild, and I say, yeah, I can relate to that. And there's a transpersonal because they're sentient beings, and they have emotions, and where years ago I would have denied that, but now I feel, I've had more experience with that, and I recognize that. So I think that transpersonal is part of that heart vibration that we recognize as the heart thoughts, that we start thinking with the heart brain, the big brain, rather than the little brain. We think everything has to be in the little brain. The little brain has to be able to relax, to be able to experience the heart brain and be able to find ways to define that. I think that's part of what we're maybe trying to do. Maybe, we say it's ineffable. We can't do that. We can't express that. Maybe that's true, but maybe we can be better at being able to express the approach to it. Well, I think it's too late in the time to start a new section, but we would start next time at 9.8 and continue on, where the Buddha then gives his recitation on what we just have been studying, what we've been talking about.
Well, there are a few more of the names that I wanted to mention that I thought were interesting.
Okay.
Um, so let's see here. So they are human heroes, 354, and it says that they are victorious over the Maras. So the,
What are the Maras?
desire, hatred, jealousy, passion, the poisons. That's what I think of the Maras.
So a collective word for that might be the demons, our personal demons that, the personification of that hatred, ignorance, and so on like that. They become the controlling factors in our lives. And they're like, hidden things that are talking to us. The Maras, the demons.
Yeah. And I skipped over the cart horses. I thought was a really good one. They said they are the cart horses that said they are able to pull the heavy burdens of benefiting all beings. So that's I like that one a lot. The so the burden of just putting your own egoness aside and realizing that you are, that you're working for the benefit of all beings.
Right.
See, they are human flowers, 356. Their qualities are a delight to beings. And this one, I think, when I was thinking about Eileen's issue, I mean, for myself, I think that's probably the best way to work with people who are not really interested, in a spiritual path this time, is to just to exemplify yourself, all the positive attributes of that path, and that over time, like Bernie said, you'll be like an inspiration to them, and they'll want to know what it is, they want to know how you do that, and their own curiosity and their own interest will allow you to plant those Dharma seeds. But you can't tell when it's going to happen. You just basically have to be your best self whenever you're with them, and basically model the Dharma through your interactions and relationship, and that's how they're going to. Maybe that's how you could cultivate those seeds, I think. 359 said, they are human tamers. Inside that says, they know how to tame the most malicious beings. And I guess I would think of that as beings who are, very much the opposite of what we describe as a Dharma practitioner. The Buddha had that story about the Buddha taming the killer who had cut off everybody's fingers. I can't remember. Aglamani, is that what his name? Do you remember his name, Bernie? Aglamani?
Which
The one who came
Ugulamani.
Yeah, he had all the rings.
Angulimala, which
necklace of
literally means
fingers?
necklace of thumbs, literally.
He needed 100 of them, and he had 99, and he was going to cut the Buddhas.
Right. And part of that story that I've heard, one part of that story is that he was doing that because he thought his spiritual teacher wanted him to do that. So it's like this misguided faith in his path.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, his teacher told him that if he killed 100 people, that he would become enlightened. So.
Eileen, I want to ask you a question that just came to my mind, and that is, in your community, in your family, are there young kids? Or are they all grown now?
Are in the 20s.
They're in the 20s now?
In the in the 20s and early 30s.
But you don't have any that are 6 years, 7 years, 8 years old, something like that?
I think I do.
Because that was one of the things that, we started at Dharma Surya, and I know they started at TMC years ago, was the first extra practice or teaching thing we did was for children. And that really helped to organize, because the children they loved the stories and they loved the prayers and all that kind of stuff. So that really helped to focus your mind on becoming a teacher. because the children are much more tolerant and forgiving of our inability to be a good teacher than the adults might be.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you the opportunity to develop the skills to be able to teach adults and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good start.
Okay, so could we wind it up now? Or are we
Okay.
at almost 8:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, Kunga, did you have any more you wanted to cite?
One of them, the ones that I skipped over, was that 357, which I thought was a really good one too. They are human lotuses, meaning they're unstained by the mud of samsara.
What number was that?
That was number 357. It said they are human lotuses.
Oh, I see. Unstained by the mud of the
Yeah,
samsara.
right after human flowers, they are human lotuses, and then
Right.
they are human white lotuses. And
Right.
the white lotuses are
Good qualities.
filled with good quality. Yeah, filled with good qualities. So that's really interesting, that little grouping there, flowers, lotuses, and white lotuses.
Yeah, I mean, so there's plenty to study. That's I think that's the real point. There's so much to study to dig into, and for every hour that we spend together on Zoom, you could spend, many hours developing, a truer understanding of what that is. That leads to an experience.
Yeah, and I mean, even without the notes, I thought that was really enjoyable section to read. I mean,
Yeah,
very inspiring.
yeah, worth reading several times. All right, well then let's call it a night. I think it was a good conversation as always, and thank you all very much. And hopefully, we'll see you all again next time. And
Hey, Jake, did you guys videotape last Monday?
I did, and I posted it.
I got a post in the email, but it was you doing a Bardo Todor.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there was. That's interesting. You got that. Well, I'll check. But if you go, did you subscribe to the channel?
I had subscribed to the channel, but for some reason I don't get anything from those subscriptions. I've subscribed to other ones too, and I must not be doing something. I must have left something off of Google because I doesn't, even though I've subscribed, it doesn't change any way I get things, information or anything.
Because I
You've
get
also
noted.
got to also have to subscribe to the notifications. Subscribing is not enough to get the
Oh, you may
notification.
have to turn on the notifications.
Okay.
They always
Okay.
say click the little bell. Click the little bell.
Okay.
Yeah.
La
But if I
campanita.
go to Buddhist practice, it's listed on there.
On our website? No.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, if you go to
Yeah.
Buddhist Practice Study on YouTube, you
It'll be
should
there.
find it there. Yeah.
Okay. I'll check it out. You don't have to send me anything. I'll see it there.
Okay. All right. Well, very good then. I'll recite a dedication. So the dedication prayer by Lord Jidun Sumgun, page 36 in the red book, if you have the red book. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You, not everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay.